Hi guys, today I am with Esdra and we'll be talking about Plan B. What is a Plan B, why you can have a Plan B and all these matters. Hi Esdra, good to have you again on People Later.
Hey, Julian, good to see you again. Thanks for the invitation. Nice to be here.
All right, so we'll do it as an open conversation. We have not prepared a dialogue or what we're gonna say. I wanted to brainstorm specifically with Esdra, who has been moving from Canada to South Brazil. I've also been moving from Hong Kong to Spain. And being familiar with move, we want to discuss Plan B. All right, so let's go on this topic. Ezra, so how can we explain a Plan B to someone who may not have any idea about what a Plan B is in terms of moving somewhere else?
Well, I don't know exactly how can we define that because it may depend on person to person, right? But basically, what I can say that worked for my family was, uh, first of all, we think the world is too small nowadays, and regardless what's going on in the world nowadays, we sort of it's nice to have a second residency or a second citizenship to be able to move around. If the world was in the perfect state, I would say that it would be necessary anyways, because then you can move around. You don't necessarily need to have a visa or go through a difficult process to get in a country that you want to visit or you want to live, right? But considering what we have nowadays in terms of pandemic and lockdowns and mandates and those type of things, the plan B is, in my opinion, like something really necessary, because if you're not happy where you are, you can move somewhere else, right? So if you have this sort of a plan B uh, of moving somewhere else where you can be treated best, where you can search for your happiness, uh, that's what we're calling plan B, right? I don't know.
I want to pause on that because there's a number of ideas and statements which are quite useful and interesting. I think you're right about the fact that, yeah, like 10 years ago, right, we were able to go on a holiday everywhere in the world. If you are a Westerner, you have access, actually quite a number of people on Earth, based on their passport, have access to other countries, right? Easily, usually 30, 40, 50, or even more, right? Some passport can actually get you to more than 100 countries, right? And all this for a 3-month entry for free. You just enter, no question asked, or barely just your name. That's it, right? And we used to do that very easily, go on vacation abroad for those who actually spend some time and travel around. But now it has become way more difficult to do this, right? Because of uh, regulation in place, being because of a virus or whatsoever, countries that are blacklisted, and then the citizens, like for instance, Russian, cannot easily travel where they want to, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and for example, as you said, 10 years ago, it wasn't that different living in Canada or in the US or here in Brazil or in Europe somewhere. It was pretty much in the Western countries. It wasn't that much different. But now that we have lots of stuff going on, right, and the governments are taking different approaches on what's going on. So, for example, we left Canada as a plan B, or plan B was leaving Canada and going somewhere else because we couldn't stand for a certain types of decisions from the government. So, what happens is that if you compare what's going on in Canada right now, it's completely different from what's going on in Brazil or in Mexico or somewhere else. So now the plan B is really a plan B, because if you're not happy because there's something going on in where you are or where you live or in your home country, let's say, right? Uh, I don't see why I don't have a plan B. Like, not necessarily move for good somewhere else, but I don't know, maybe just going somewhere else to spend time there, and if you like there, if your family like that place, right?
it's
You just stay
more
there.
it's more a security, right? Basically, it's well, I used to do risk management for some time, so for me, I see it more as a mitigation of a risk, right? There's a potential risk,
Yes.
that I get stuck in my country is a potential risk that things just get worse where I live in this country. And I
Mm.
want to mitigate that risk by giving me one option, one or several options.
Yes,
Um,
you use the perfect word, the risk management. I used to talk to my wife about this. It's all about risk management, right?
yeah.
And and your willingness to take the risk, or your willingness also, how long can you, how far go your risk assessment, right? If you can wait a lot more, or if you can wait whatever
Mm,
happens,
mm,
it's all about the risk management. I agree
mm.
completely with you. The plan B is a lot about risk management. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say, yeah, it's just basic risk management, and it might not be familiar to most of the people, but it's for instance, I was thinking it like if you're a teenager and you have, for instance, unprotected sex, basic risk management would be to use a condom, right? It's just to be to use a basic example. If you don't do that, then you're running a risk, right? And it's a bit similar situation as now, right? If you don't actually pay attention to what can impact you, uh,
Yeah.
then you may actually end up in troubles, definitely.
Yeah.
So plan B. So I try to think from a fully from a person perspective. So what do I start with, right? So someone who is basically has strictly no idea, it's just a new concept for that person. Where do I start with? What do I read? What do I think about? How can we get started on that? How can we help someone to get started on this?
Yeah. Well, I don't know exactly your experience on this, but the way it started for me and for my family, it was very natural, like very intuitive, because we love traveling, right? I think most of the people love traveling, right? So and nowadays with the internet that we have, we can see videos, and we can see other places, and we don't necessarily need to go to that places, right? We can watch videos and movies and everything, and learn about new countries and new cultures. We used to do that for fun with my family, looking for places, and maybe scheduling the next vacation. We had that list of where we can go, where we could think that it would be a nice trip to go. So that started this way, like a play, right? Playing with my kid. And then when do we get to the point where we say, hey, you know what? I'm not really happy here. I think we could look for some place. And then we start recollecting memories from places that we went,
Mhm.
right? That's how we got here in
Mm.
southern Brazil.
That is very interesting, Ezra. And sorry to cut you, but I see this multiple times. The pattern of basically thinking the plan B, and the first thing you think about is the place where you've been before, right? So, and usually the place you've been on a holiday, right? Because for those who have the luxury or enough money to actually go take their vacation abroad, for those who can afford it, is one thing that we think about, right? So, for instance, you're French and you have vacation, I don't know, in Thailand or in South Italy, Sicily, Greece, what else? Maybe North Africa, and you just think about those countries as potential plan B, right? It's might be the first thing you
Yeah,
think about, even before thinking of, oh, I can actually I have this nationality, or my grandfather has this nationality, so through my descendants, I can actually claim citizenship in another country. The first thing usually is the holiday. I used to go there on holiday, so why not thinking of living there actually?
yeah. There's only one thing that I want to point out on what you're saying, which it makes completely sense, right? That's the natural way of happening, right? If you've been somewhere and you liked being there, so it's probably the first place you consider moving to, right? When you were thinking on move or plan B. The only thing that we have to be very aware is that most of the times when we travel for fun, because we were like 2 weeks vacation in Paradise Beach in Mexico, for example, or in Brazil somewhere, it's totally different from living, right?
Yeah.
Because in 15 days, just having fun in a hotel with all the comfort, you're not dealing with the daily basis problem of the population, the local population, right?
Mm,
So that's something that we have to balance. And that's, yeah, for sure. That's the first
mm.
option when we think about is recollecting our memory of where we went and we were happy there. But then you have to start considering completely different stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like the daily basis life,
Mm,
the infrastructure of the place, not even only the country, but the place you're going, right? Because, for
mm.
example, Brazil, it's a huge place, right? Here in South is completely different from the rest of the country, and I know that,
Yeah. That
and that's what.
that's a good point. That's a good point, and that's why, for instance, so it's funny because it's a bit what I did, right? So, for instance, I love to go to Thailand on a holiday, but going to live in Phuket or going to live in Krabi or all those places, maybe not. But what about the capital, right? What about Bangkok?
Yeah,
Why not? It's still Thailand, but it's not next to the beach. It's not exactly next to the sea, but still, it's the same country, right? So
yes,
the option of the usually the option of the nearest big city that you could access, because it gives you access to potential work, potential infrastructure, and all this. It's I think it could be considered, yeah, definitely. But you're right
yeah,
that some research needs to be done, because it's staying there for 10 days on a holiday and living there for multiple months, quarter, or years. It's totally different. So it also depends on the pain you are able to withstand in your country where you're living. Because if the pain is actually so high that you are under mandate and stuff like that, it's still it's still better to go to those places, even if it's not the best, but at least you won't be under the scope of tough
yeah.
regulations, for instance.
Yeah. One other thing that I consider myself that was part of my plan, right? Was the new state of things in the world now, of what's going on in the world, right? So we have to consider, for example, it was the reason why we moved from Canada. Uh, we saw what happened there in terms of government interfering in our lives. So it's good to look around and see what countries. Well, I would say it's one more thing that we have to consider when we want to plan our plan B.
Mm,
Consider our plan B, because it's not only, well, as again, as you said, 10 years ago it would be just like okay, I like Thailand. I think I can live in the capital, right? Because it has all the infrastructure. I know the culture already. I can move there. But now, um, maybe what I don't know what happened or what's going on in terms of politics in Thailand, right? But maybe there's something going on there that you won't like, right?
mm,
Like what they did in the over the pandemic, what the levels of the restrictions and the lockdowns, it changed from country to country.
yeah.
So a lot of the Plan B thing is rising nowadays, especially specifically because people are starting to realize that they can be happy somewhere else, not necessarily with where they are, and they can't stand with the what some governments are doing with the population, right?
Mm,
And it's not so.
yeah.
There's another thing that I think it's different from the past that now people have to consider. And a third thing that what we did was something like this. And in Europe, you have that easily, but in the restriction times, it may change. It will probably change. Is the ability of being close to borders of other countries where you can move as a second plan B, let's say a plan C, right? If you need to.
Mm,
So
yeah.
like I am here right now, as I said before in our previous conversation, I
Mm,
am around 10 to 12 hours from three borders with Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay. So
okay.
if I don't like what's going on in Brazil, I can just drive around and maybe go to Paraguay and spend time there. I don't necessarily need to live there, but just wait for the dust to down. So it's probably something that it would help people if they consider that on that
Yeah,
number.
so just to recenter the topic, so yeah, when you think about Plan B, having in mind a number of variables that matter to you, that are important to you, and so we mentioned, I would say, the variable around the agenda. Basically, is this country part of G7, G8, G20? and that's a big indicator of what will fall on you pretty quickly usually. And then the variable around the geographical location. Where are you located within this country, and the possibility to go to other country. There's something I was looking at, for instance, for East Europe, right? East Europe has actually quite a shitload of countries, being Serbia, Romania, Montenegro, small country, larger country, but this ability to actually move to some extent between the places, right?
Yes.
An ability that you may not have actually in West Europe, where, for instance, if you are in France and they close the border, sorry, there's no way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bit like Canada, exactly the same, right? If you close the border in Canada and there's nowhere to go. You can go north, you can go east and west, but it's
Yes.
not the best option.
Canada, Canada is there's a sort of a joke that we say Canada is like an island, right? Because you're by sea on all on north and east and west, and the only border you have is in the south, which is with basically one country,
Yeah,
which is the U.S. So in that matter that we're talking about right now, if you're not able to cross the border south, you have nowhere to go
mm,
because you're not going to the ocean and cross the ocean right to Europe or
exactly.
something like that.
I wanna
So
I wanna come back to the family tree, right? Basically, the option that some people may not think about, which is basically, oh, your grandparents come from this country, and actually you can potentially claim citizenship of this country and getting a new passport. Some of the folks actually not paying attention to this or not checking this, where it's a very easy way to actually get additional
very
citizenship. I know a bunch of people, for instance, I have a friend in the Netherlands who his grandparents was able to claim citizenship in Hungary, for instance.
mm,
That's a nice way to have multiple uh,
it is.
residencies. Yeah.
And that's what we did, right? Because my wife had her ancestors were Italians, and then
Mm,
we ran her citizenship, and my son was able to get the citizenship to
mm,
Italian. And then I am able to get it too. I just
mm.
need to have a little bit of, I have to improve my Italian in order to get my citizenship because
Oh yeah.
it's one of the requirements to have a little bit of knowledge on the language.
Mm,
But it's one of, it's in our uh, plan list. It's in
yeah.
our list of to-do list,
Now
But
talking,
yeah,
good.
no,
Now talking about husband and wife, you see, and I was reading online, there's actually a number of companies that will arrange wedding for you, basically fake wedding, fake marriage, right? Just for you to get a citizenship somewhere, residency somewhere. I don't think we basically suggest to do this, but just for the people to be aware of it, that it's actually common practice. And I saw
yeah,
that, for instance, in Brazil, they actually do this as well, right? I have a friend openly talk to me about it. Like, you can marry someone in Brazil and you get uh, the, the residency or whatsoever
yeah.
visa that you need to get, right?
Yeah, and for example, in our case, in 2016, when we got her citizenship and my son's, uh, there was no specifically plan B in mind. It was pretty much because, as you said, it's easy, right? It's a right that she has because her ancestor was Italian, so we could have that. And the main reason we did wasn't specifically for myself or for my wife. It was for my son. He was 5 at that time. And again, with the world is small nowadays, right? When he grew up, what we were thinking, okay, he was 5, but when he turned 18, right? If he wants to go to Europe to spend time there, he was he now he can go because an European citizen, right? So he doesn't need to deal with paperwork or spend money with that. He just go there and he's a
Mm.
citizen. If you want to go for a university, for example, there he can go anytime. He just pick a plane and then he can go. Now it's a plan B. It could be a plan B, but at that point, no. We had some friends in Canada, for example. They had a Portuguese citizenship. They had a Portuguese background, and then they had two teenager kids. And we were always asking, why don't you guys render citizenship? Both parents were Portuguese Canadians, right? But they were born in Portugal and moved to Canada really young. But then they said, no, why? Why are we doing this? We don't need to. We're Canadians, right?
Mm,
So it's not going to hurt you at all, right?
mm.
You're just giving your kids one more opportunity for them to,
Yeah,
be
I think what you're saying is super important. The people, they they don't realize how sometimes how easy it is to get a plan B in place. They don't think they need it right now. But what if you were to need it in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months time? Isn't it better
yeah.
to actually spend a month, a few weeks working on it right now, so that
Mm,
you actually don't need to do this urgently when the needs surface? Just prepare, anticipate things. But it's
yeah.
I think it's in the culture. We will not People are not used to anticipate things. They used to their daily life. Nothing really changes. So it's like, why doing this, right? It's like, yeah,
Yeah, and sometimes they think that it's too complicated. So they said, those friends, they told us, why doing this? It's so complicated. And we said, why is it complicated? You guys are Portuguese, right? So you have all the paper. It's just a matter of going to the embassy and filling the forms and wait for
exactly.
them to do the work because it's going to cost you. It's not expensive at all.
Mm,
And then your kids can have a second passport and go, an European one that they can go, I don't know, maybe
mm,
20, 26, 27 countries, right?
mm.
Uh,
Okay,
so when
so
they grow up,
mm, that's good.
yeah,
Okay, so plan B, I'm just trying to sum up a little bit what we have. So plan B, narrow down the variable, identify a set of countries, think about the country where you go on holidays, think about the additional passport that you can get through your family tree. Uh, so once you have identified a number of countries, there's also the option, for instance, of investment. And I think all this we talk about it in Peopleizer under the visa related to the section related to visas, where if you invest a certain sum of money in real estate and stuff like that, that qualify as residency right away,
yeah,
which is a nice to have. For those who have the money to do it, it's usually an investment of at least 100,000. It can go up to $1 million. But for those who have enough money for that, why not? It could be an easy option. Um,
yeah.
and then, so when do we activate the plan B? I think it's a big question, because sometimes it's like, okay, I have this plan B, but when do how people think about it?
Yeah, that's a nice question. I think that what comes into my mind is, for example, if you don't care on what's going on right now or in your country, if you think it's normal, the restriction, whatever is going on, probably the first plan B trigger will be retiring. I don't know, but maybe many people that think on plan B, they think about the retirement, a plan B for retirement, let's say, right?
Yeah, basically,
Their
yeah,
kids.
value for money at retirement stage, right? Basically, it's like, can I actually benefit from my pension but spend less money? Yeah,
Yes, yes, and then it's natural. For example, most of the people that I know of, they just move or spend time in developing countries, tropical countries, because it's more affordable, right? It's way more affordable. There's no comparison
yeah,
about
it's
that.
no comparison. Yeah.
In some of those countries, as we talked before, they what is their considered normally their weakness is their strength because sometimes the government they are not able to enforce the law, let's say, the way they should, but in a matter of they can enforce the law for crimes and those type of things, which is mostly what affects the us citizens, right? It's about criminality, violence, those type of things, but in terms of put in place all the restrictions when something like that happens, it's complicated for them. When I was in Canada, they were able to keep track on every single person that arrived in the airport and call them to see if they were in the quarantine. It's not going to happen in any developing country, believe me.
Mhm.
Believe me, it's not going to happen because they don't have the government apparatus to take care, to
Yeah, they,
babysit.
they don't have the infrastructure to do that, and so like you need to
No,
pay so many staff and stuff like that, and people have to.
and believe me, they don't care. They don't
Mm.
care.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not only that they can't, but they don't care, right? As long as you're not committing a crime or doing something really wrong that is affecting others, your neighbors and the community, they don't care. You just stay there. If you're quiet, they will leave you alone.
yeah.
So I think that sometimes the plan B comes, the first trigger is a retirement. So a person that has worked all his life, right? And then he's just thinking, you know what, I should be in a more quiet place. I can be in that place. It's more affordable for me to be there. The weather is good. But anytime they can just go back to their country if they want, right? And if you have a citizenship or if you have a residency, like you said, for as a real estate investor, for in Brazil, for example, it's $200,000 for you to buy real estate. You can buy more than one, and believe me, with this amount, you can buy very nice, like two very nice houses nearby the shore, nearby the beach, and you can even make money because you can rent one and live in another one. And if you want to just spend time here, you can just rent both and have some money coming from this and go back to your country. I have friends that they do that. They're from Germany and they have this here. So retirement is one thing, and another thing could be uh, again what's going on in terms of government dictatorship. Let's say, right? Some of the governments nowadays are forcing people to do some people what they don't want to do, and then this is something that you have to establish your red flags as we mentioned before. Uh, up to what point I can support
Mm.
or what can we support in terms of government interfering
Mm.
in our lives? Are we willing
Yeah,
to
mm. I
stop
like to.
law?
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I like to state it in this manner. Basically, if I see this happening, and this being what can be whatever mandatory vaccination, it could be the price of housing is just going through the roof. Then I will activate my plan B. I will move, right? Since like because it's
Yes.
important to set a ceiling, right? Otherwise, it's even that we are in a situation where it's a bit progressive boiling of the frog until we get to the new system, being whatever system CBDCs or whatever system we will have. It's hard to tell when exactly I need to take my decision. So the best is to try to capture it and write it on a paper or say it loud and even talk to your family with your family about it, right? So like, what would you need to see around you for saying that okay, we need to move? Is it seeing riots in the street? Is it seeing development of crime rates?
Hmm.
Whatever it's you perceive as.
Well, I think you're right. I think in my deep inside, everybody has that feeling that's something is not correct where they're living, or I wouldn't say it's wrong, but something is out of place, right? Because it's happening everywhere. Something is happening everywhere. Right? If you watch the news, there's a riot going on here, and there's a fire there, and something
Mm.
weird going on
But
everywhere.
in the West, in the West, because like
In the
you can
West,
have people living in I don't know Uttar Pradesh in India, where like no things are the same for me on a daily basis. I don't see the difference. I was talking to
well,
a guy in Singapore this morning. Doesn't see the difference. Things are the same for me. It's like okay.
yeah, yeah. I mean, even if you don't see the necessity of moving somewhere else, I would say that it's nice to have this conversation with friends, as you said, with family. Just keep that in mind that something may happen at some point, right? Then you don't like, but if you don't take action, or at least you have a to-do list, as you said, I used to do that. I have my to-do list. I take notes on everything. I like to do that because I look to that paper. It's all. I don't even go to the computer because I'm an old school guy. I like pen or a pencil in a paper. So I looked at those notes and say, okay, I can't forget about this. And that's how things happen. So when we have a chance, just go over your notes and then you will see that it's not so complicated for you. Even though if you're comfortable, I mean, maybe you can go to Brazil, spend some time there. And you know what? I like that place. And if you got retired with 2,000 US dollars, you can have the citizenship. So you say, hey, you know what? It doesn't cost me a lot. I will be in a very nice place with very nice people, eating very nice food, and it's not going to cost me anything. I can go to my country anytime. But if something really bad happens, and I think that it's better for me to stay in that country, like my example now, it's Brazil. I just can stay there because I'm a resident. I'm a permanent resident. I don't even need to be concerned about being there illegally or dealing with the immigration, the police, or whatever. So if you keep that in mind, I don't think it's a bad idea having a plan B. But nowadays, I think I would say that it's actually necessary everyone to have a plan B,
Hmm.
even if you're comfortable where you are. I don't think it's going
Yeah.
to harm you
I mean, in a
to
con
stay.
in a context of system change, I think it's
Yeah,
important to
and
to have
then
an
you have to balance, right? You mentioned the CBDC. I was asked a lot about chemtrails, about what else? The lockdowns that happened. If Brazil is already mandating or talking about using masks because it's going on already. Some states in India, as we speak right now, they're locked down. There's something going on in India about a virus that I don't really know what it is, but they're locking people down there. So um, if you keep your eyes open on what's going on in the world, and just have a plan B to be somewhere, and that plan B, preferably, if includes that ability of you moving, like I said, here you can cross 3 borders in a few hours driving, even more because it gives you more. How can I say? Ability to move from where you are
Mm.
to other countries and not changing that much your plans, right? Because of a few hours driving, it's not like getting an airplane and crossing the ocean,
Yeah.
which takes a lot, right? So yeah, I can go if something happened here I don't like. I can go to Paraguay because I think there is what's going on there is better for me. I just can put some clothes and some stuff in a bag and drive a few hours, cross the border, and stay there for a while, and then return if I want
Yeah,
to.
definitely.
So
All right. I think that's a good overview of Plan B. Do you think we miss anything, or we good with that?
no, I think we covered lots of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And if people want to reach out, they can reach out to you or to me, no matter what. You are in the Brazil area, so if they have a specific question about Brazil, or if they're thinking to move to Brazil, they can reach out to you. We have got your contact on Peopleizer, definitely.
Yeah, I'll be open to discuss anything.
Thank you, Ezra.
Yeah.
It was nice
Thank
to
you.
talk to you. Cheers.
Cheers.